So we're looking at a bit of artillery now.
Yes, we are.
I know very little about this other than Russian.
Yes, Soviet. Yeah, you're right. The ZPU-4. So she's an anti-aircraft gun primarily. Runs with 4 KPV 14.5mm guns on her. We bought her in November last year, and spent some time between then and February rebuilding her after she was involved in an accident, a road traffic accident. Had the misfortune of being hit with us, which caused a little bit more damage, and we decided at that point, let's strip her down and restore her rather than just fix the damage and carry on. So we gave her a good makeover.
So what sort of era is this?
Yeah, very difficult question. Without going to the books, I can't remember when they were first in production, but memory serves me right, maybe 1947 onwards. We have workshop manuals dating back to the early 50s for these. So they're quite an old piece of equipment technology-wise, and based largely on the German models, World War II German models of anti-aircraft guns. So she's got an elevation angle, I believe, of just 90 degrees, and she will depress to, I think, possibly 10 degrees below zero. So she's quite an effective gun. I believe the KPVs fire at 600 rounds a minute at 14.75mm times 4. That's a lot of lead coming at you at a time.
It's quite powerful.
Yeah,
Very
it is.
Powerful.
So used primarily by the Soviets, but also by a number of other countries, used by the Iraqis during the first Gulf War as well. We don't know her history, so we can't tell you where she's been or what she's done. But she was an Iraqi Gulf War capture. Ended up over here as a bring-back trophy for one of the regiments, I would imagine. Ended up with a Soviet, in the hands of a Soviet arms dealer who deals in BDRMs, Soviet anti-aircraft, anti-tank guns, and we purchased her off of him. So we don't know who had her, we don't know who captured her, we don't know where she came from. All we know is that at some point she was in the hands of the Iraqi army and is now here at the hangar as part of our collection.
It's nice restoration, particularly when it went through on a reasonable amount of damage in the
Yes,
accident.
it did. Yeah, we were kind of unlucky with that. However, if she hadn't have been damaged, we may very well have been tempted just to sand her, give her a coat of paint and leave her. But due to some of the extensive nature of the damage, we thought, it's best, let's just tackle this thing start to finish and do it properly.
It's quite a complex sighting, isn't it?
It is. Don't ask me any geeky questions about it as well. She has a manual sighting system, and she has a direct sight on her, the one that you can see there in front of our silent friend. She also has a panoramic sight for anti-aircraft, so that's more direct fire for ground fire. The anti-aircraft sight is inside the workshop. We just need to make up a bracket to mount it. But yeah, it is fairly complex, and all the books I have are in Russian, and my Russian's not that good, so I don't quite understand how it works just yet.
Okay, fine, thank you. This one, as I understand it, is your newest acquisition.
It is well, she's not the latest. The latest we'll get onto in a minute, but she's one of the most recent acquisitions.
Okay.
We bought her back in March this year. A Supercat ATMP, all-terrain mobile platform. She's been through various guises. She's shown signs of her Gulf 1 colours. The cage is a later addition, so the cage would have been Afghan era onwards, op Fingal, and then op Herrick maybe. And then she showed signs of possibly being used out in Optelic. Very difficult. We don't have any definite history for her, and I'm not about to invent it for you. But she's an incredibly useful vehicle. So she would have been used with a canvas tilt and a set of hoops on her during Op Granby in one of the roles to carry rapier missiles for the rapier systems. We've seen pictures of her with the screamers, the generators for the rapier being pulled out of the back of her. She could have pallets of ammunition on the back of her. She could carry guys on stretchers. So all-terrain mobile platform. It was used for pretty much anything that they could think that they might need something in sort of all-terrain, I suppose.
Well, yeah, because their cross-country performance is pretty much second to none, isn't it?
It is pretty good. She reputedly has a top speed of 40 miles an hour, but becomes a little bit unstable due to having sort of 3 wheels aside. You end up rocking like you're on a bucking bronco. She's probably more stable at 25 to 30 miles an hour. Fairly low ground pressure, I can't tell you what exactly. She's 4-wheel steer and 6-wheel drive. Most of the drivetrain seems to be Land Rover related. The power plant, power plant's a tricky one. She's technically a Mark II with a Mark III cage on her. So a Mark II, she would have had a VW 1600 engine in her. At the moment, she has a newly fitted Mark III 1900 turbo diesel engine, VW. So she's skid steer as well as conventional braking. She can turn on her own axis as well. So a useful platform. She has a mount for a GPMG up the front, and she has the facility to take a 50 cal ring on the back. The ring we don't have, 50 cal we do, but we have nothing to mount it on for the minute.
Right, and that would sit on here?
That would, yep, the gun ring would go on the back then, and so you'd have a gunner on the back and 2 guys in the front.
Fascinating vehicle, and of course it's no steering wheel on this one.
No, that's right, a little bit like a motorcycle really.
Yeah.
Quite easy to steer, she has power steering as well, so a fairly easy vehicle to use. But not that many of them made, I believe there were 200. 200
really?
only,
So
yep.
Where is that? And did you say it was used, by the sound of it, as a jack of all trades?
It pretty much sounds like it does. I've still got a fair bit of research to do, so I don't know too much about these, and I think due to the scarcity there's not a huge amount of information out about them.
Where did you acquire it from?
That's a very good question. It came up for sale on a Facebook military vehicle group, and it just happened to catch my eye, and I'd seen one in a collection in Milton Keynes maybe 4 years ago, and I really fancied it. It appealed to me, but I hadn't seen another one since. And at our last expo at the Hop Farm at Beltring, I saw a few of them, and I thought, well, that's nice. And then this one popped up for sale, and I thought, you know what, now's the right time. The price was good, and I thought, let's add this to the collection. And I think small and interesting vehicles suits us. You know, we can all go out and buy big trucks and big track vehicles. For me, I like the small, interesting things. They seem to get most attention. You know, I think guys like things with things on it. You know, that makes sense. You know, interesting vehicles with lots of little bits and pieces and Gucci kit to look at, and I think I like them as well. You know.
I think it's got tons of personality, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about.
And it's different.
You've hit the nail on the head with the personality thing there.
That's really good. So another recent acquisition for you?
Yeah, this is one of the latest pieces we've just got in. A really nice and interesting piece. Like the ZPU4, I've always wanted to add the Iraqi element to the collection as well. Our pockets aren't particularly deep, and we can't add any more the Allied stuff without starting to spend big money. You know, when you're talking the AS90s and the MLRS and the Humvees, they're all out of our price range. All the big stuff. This is really interesting and it's nice. It's not an ex-Gulf War one, although it may have been used. We can't say with any surety whether it was, but we do know its provenance. We know that it was captured by the 19th Royal Artillery in support of the 1 Royal Anglians in 2002 in Kabul, Afghanistan. So that's after Granby, so she may have been with the Iraqis before that. We don't know, but we do know that she was in Afghanistan in 2002 and brought back as a trophy for them. Ended up at Tidworth. They ran out of the acreage to store it. It passed on then to a local collector who then passed it on to the chap that we bought it off of. So she's Soviet made, a D44 Divisional gun, 85mm, anti-tank gun rather than anything else. And she's in not bad order at all. We've been fortunate enough to find all the optics over in Europe. Yes. So the optic side is now complete with the clinometer, the direct sight and the panoramic sight. We've managed to get some HE shells for her as well, which will make a nice display when she's set up at a show. She's pretty much complete and everything pretty much functions. We've got a little bit of fettling to do and remove a few things that have been put on that shouldn't be on, and change her paint colour. We will paint her in Iraqi colours because they were used there, so it's relevant to our collection. So over this winter we'll probably drag her inside, do a little bit of work, free up a couple of sticky parts, and put her back into the colour scheme that suits the collection a bit more. I mean, we won't badge her up as being Iraqi. We'll, you know, it'd be nice to show her history as being an Afghanistan piece.
It's a representative thing that will fit into your collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was actually manufactured post-war?
No, not at all. In the last days of World War II, hence D44, 1944.
Oh, D44 is 1944.
Yeah, 1944. So yeah, the Soviets, Tail end of World War II they were made, and were pretty much out of use with the Soviet Army in the mid-80s. They took a lot over to Afghanistan in 1979 when the Soviets went into Afghanistan, and as we know they withdrew from Afghanistan in 1989, leaving behind a lot of equipment. So I suspect that's how it ended up in Afghanistan.
So it's got a few stories to tell.
Yes, I bet it has.
Probably left behind in Afghanistan, plus seeing the tail end of World War II.
Yes,
And,
yes, yeah.
Seen a bit of use.
Yeah, an interesting piece indeed.
It's another one. If it could tell a story, couldn't it?
Yes, I know. Maybe it's a story you don't want to hear, though.
That's a very
it's
good
not always
point.
a load of glamour that goes with these pieces.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
some of
very
them have
true.
seen some sad things.
Yes. No, okay, so we're looking at the two bikes in your collection now.
Yes.
One is owned by B,
Yep.
who's currently sitting over behind us, so she can heckle me if she so wishes. B is the proud owner of a Harley Davidson. And not many people are aware that Harley Davidson do continue making military bikes right through, and this one's 1980s, I believe.
No, 1996.
I got that one, 1996. It was a standard design, wasn't it?
It
Or
pretty
similar.
much followed off the back of the Armstrong MT500, which was the dispatch rider's bike during Gulf One. So she's definitely not a Gulf One up Granby veteran. That came in too late from 96 onwards. She would have, that kind of bike would have seen service in Bosnia, Gulf Two, Optelic, favoured by dispatch riders. Who else used them? I can't tell you. I don't know a great deal of. I don't know a great deal about who used them, other than primarily being dispatch riders. Not so much an outrider's bike.
And of course,
Regimental
B
run around.
uses it.
Well, she's yet to use it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's
she's
her
yet to-
bike, but she doesn't.
No, she hasn't. Not yet. Yeah, she
Okay.
insists I change the exhaust first. It's got an aftermarket exhaust on that's a little bit too loud, and she insists I change that back to standard first, which
Okay.
I will do once I've finished with all the other things.
I think she needs to clean it a bit.
I think she needs to clean it as well. But Lee said soonest mended and all that. A little bit of a rare one, this one.
Oh, okay.
So she's X22 SAS. We can't prove the provenance of it. So at the time of Op Granby, the regiment went down to Hundra and made a private off-the-books purchase. They had KTMs at the time, and they took on XR250s over into the Gulf. So they weren't an MOD motorcycle, so they didn't have a VRM, they didn't have a contract number. It was an off-the-book regimental purchase. We found this purely by chance. I spotted it in civilian guise for sale on a Facebook marketplace group. And on closer look at the pictures, I saw what I thought were signs of desert sand or light stone underneath some of the white paint. And I'd asked the seller whether it was painted, whether it was primer, and he said no, it's primer, and it was a very cheap bike. So I sent a friend of mine down to have a look at it, pick it up, and brought it back. And she was running okay, and we thought, well, we'll start sanding her down and seeing what's underneath. And underneath was all her Op Granby clothes. The more we sanded down, all the light stone came to light. All her military colours were underneath. So they were only used by 22 SAS at the time, A and D squadrons. If somebody had done it as a fake bike, it would still have been a fake bike when we bought her. Because it's very hard to find an early XR250 anyway. So if somebody had done it as a mock-up, it would have stayed a mock-up. So this is why I'm convinced she is an original one. Very, very difficult to prove. Like I said, there's no paperwork trail. It wasn't off-the-book purchase.
Yeah.
But like I say, I think if she was a fake, she would have stayed this way. So an incredibly rare find. When we initially bought her, I thought, well, I'll use it. I get the benefit of using it as a daily driver as well. But she's a little bit too special for that. So she does run, but she only comes out on special occasions. An ideal complement is a classic Gulf One picture of Pinky and one of these out in the desert side by side, and we thought it only fitting we had the same piece of the collection and recreate that iconic image.
I say it's quite a good one to have in the collection, isn't
Yeah,
it?
very,
and a
very
rare
much
one.
so. Yeah, very good and very rare. You're right.
Well, that's great. So here we have a rapier, one of two that you have, in fact.
Yes, the second one we acquired recently with the D44. That needs a little bit of restoration, but fear not. The one that we're looking at here was in exactly the same condition as that one over there when we got it. She was in rag order, had been quite neglected, and as with most gate guardians, they're left outside for a number of years, and then they end up in the hands of someone and end up outside for a number of years. And when we got to her, there were a lot of seized components, a few missing components, and we got really lucky. I spotted on eBay one day a prototype one of these with a homemade tin radome on it and a homemade tin body on it, but the chassis and the running gear was original Rapier, so that gave us the spares we needed to restore this one. Like all of the Rapiers, and there are a few in private hands, most of them, 90%, have zero internals. We thought we'd got lucky when some of the volunteers from RAF Honington called us and said, well, our Rapiers have got internals, I'm sure, come up and have a look and see what they're like. And we went up to RAF Honington and they said, oh, they haven't, sorry. And we looked inside and theirs were empty as well. So we thought, well, we have a challenge on our hands now, because I'd like to get this thing working. I'd like it to do more than just standing missiles pointed in one spot. So we set about doing some drawings and kind of working out what I needed to lift and shift 250 kilos worth of weight on an arm that's slightly, the weight being slightly off centre. So we made some gearing up for it. We used some motors, linear actuators, and we actually got her working on the azimuth and elevation, which is brilliant. So quite an unusual piece. We got her ready for the show season in 2020, but as you know,
I remember that.
It all collapsed down. So she hasn't actually been out anywhere to show anybody. So we're looking forward to shows kicking off next year, and we can take her out and about.
I remember when I came on my last visit, you had this in bits, and I could see the state of it, and you were beginning to experiment with the mechanism on getting it working.
Yes, you're right. I've had some help, you know. I haven't done this all by myself, you know. I've got Bea, my wife, who may or may not speak to you later on. She helps. I've had good friends. Paul, who's here today, he's helped me work on this. I've a good Russian friend that's not here today. He's helped me work on this as well. So, you know, I don't want it to sound as if it's just one man doing all this on his own. I've had some great friends that have mucked in when I've needed it and helped with all the dirty jobs, the stripping down, the sanding, all the behind the scene nuts and bolt things. And without them, I couldn't do any of this. You know, it's just, there aren't enough hours in the day, and there is only me. And while I know a little bit about everything, I don't know everything about everything. So I'm always grateful to have the help of good friends with what we do.
So on the Rapier, would there be a command vehicle with this? Would it be used?
Yes, so we're getting into geeky territory now, and I don't know a huge amount about them. They were primarily towed by the Land Rover 101 forward control. No, that's fine. So they were primarily towed by the Land Rover 101 forward control, which would also carry 9, I believe, missiles on board as well. Yeah, and or the Land Rover, the 127, the Rapier Land Rover, which would also tow these as well, slightly longer bus, 127 inches. You had a generator, and we have the generator over in the other workshop that ran this, that went onto the front of this. You also had the addition of a blind fire radar system. So without the blind, there were Rapiers that ran without the blind fire. It just meant that they didn't operate 24/7. With a blind fire, it meant you could work 24 hours around the clock in all kinds of weather as well. So this is just the launch units missiles that we're looking at the minute. We don't have the blind fire, and we certainly don't have either the 101 or the 127. But we can hook it up behind one of the other vehicles and move it around as needed.
Going back to what you're saying, with all the help you've had for the collection, which you've got an amazing collection here. It's a real nice stage of restoration in all the kit.
Thank you.
So I think that's good. And I know this weekend you're doing a bit of a do here, and as I say, for that reason I'd like to thank you very, very much for letting us come and do this. Well, I know you're busy getting ready and prepping for that and everything, so
no, thank you.
I appreciate your time and your patience on
my pleasure. As a little bit of a finale, would you like to see it work?
Definitely.
Right, so hoping that the batteries, I plugged in the remote control earlier, and hoping that I have enough battery power in it, I shall turn it on. What do you think of that?
I think it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And I hope everybody will enjoy watching it and take as much pleasure seeing it work as I have had building it.
It looks tremendous.
Thank you.
Well, here I am in Checkpoint Charlie's bar. Once again, I would say thank you very much to Bea, thank you very much to Site for letting us come and have a look at the collection. Hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. Remember, please subscribe. It does really help us to do this and keep going as a YouTube channel. So thank you very much and cheers.